So we have the Bridger Naba here. Can you tell me about the history and significance of African mask?
African mask. the as I was explaining about the Kemetic culture, a way that a group of people achieved enlightenment. And once you achieve enlightenment, you achieve awareness, you learn how to live harmoniously with everything that exists around you. Name it, in the vegetation, in the animal world, in the aquatic world, in the forest, the mountains, human. You learn even the star system. All of the stars we see in the sky. Once you reach awareness, you have to learn how to harmonize with them, or dialogue, and or maybe keep those realities also part of your life, to be also a part of your life and all of that. So once that also is achieved, then those realities are considered to be also like entities sharing the planet with us, entities sharing the universe with us. So technically, those realities also will see within you a human that is vibrating at the same frequency, or at the same, forces that allow them also to kind of manifest, themselves towards you, and all of them, even show you how to approach them. So this is what brings the concept of creating the mask. So you will see the mask that represent like animals, the mask that represent like aliens, so whatever we call aliens, the mask that represent the things that no one knows, you get to see in life and all of that. But why do we do that? It's because we, to be able to create a mask, you have to be able to have the spirit of that mask, residing within you. So a lot of people will travel to Africa and buy masks, thinking that those masks are almost like the power itself. But no, the mask, the one who's carrying the mask, or the one who's wearing the mask, is the one that has been initiated, that has been elevated, that has been the one that worked hard to kind of resonate and vibrate at the forces that allow now that mask to be put on, and then the spirit of the mask itself to travel and then manifest within the person. So even when you buy the mask and you come and hang in your house, it doesn't really have the power. It doesn't really serve the purpose of why that mask was created. So that's really like the history about those masks. But the mask is not something that a human being just have to, think is something that is just magical or spiritual and all of that. A mask is something that comes from transmission. It has to be transmitted within some type of lineage, or it has to be transmitted within some type of a tribe, where like this children already at the young age have to go through the a process of the rite of passage, initiation. And then through that rite of passage, they get to prepare the body, reinforce the body, reinforce the self, and reinforce the gender, because the mask also have genders. Reinforce all of that. Once all of those things are reinforced within the child or the individual, so they will be grown up understanding, who they are, the role that they play, and they will end up becoming what maybe in English you may call the medium between the entity itself that exists within the universe, within nature, and the human being. And once that person gets to connect with that entity, for us human who are maybe novice, who are just like the average Joes, in the community, now we find ourselves in the presence of a human being that is being used by a spirit, or by the power of some type of entity in nature, or some type of entity in the universe. And a lot of people will talk about the dogon, and then how we understand the star system and all of that. But all of that comes to really be like, it's not just one thing that led to that result. It's like a lot of other things, element that came together to lead to kind of those results and all of that.
So the mask is a serious thing. It shouldn't be taken
Yes,
as a fashion
the
thing.
mask is so serious. The mask is so serious, where even in our cultures, like for us, the Dogon, the mask, the most of the masks that we have the mask for funerals. When you're celebrating someone's life, someone's death, we have mask that has to come for when children, finish their rite of passage, we have masks that has to come because somehow there will be like some pandemic that's coming, and then the mask, the divination will tell us this is happening, so the mask will manifest, and then the mask will come and then help clean and then take all of that away. We have, masks that come for celebration of the star system, like when the stars on their orbit, certain type of star on their orbit come to, align and all of that. And in our culture, we celebrate our mask most of the time when the star Venus, the Venus, star, comes to be like, to complete its, journey on its orbit. Then that's when we even have to bring all of the star. And most of the time that happens like every 8 years. That, so it's a very, very serious matter, when we speak about the mask and all of that.
Many different areas have their own history of the origins and significance of dreadlocks. We've interviewed a lot of Rastafari brethren. They speak about how they were inspired by the Mau Mau. Some speak about the Sadus. I know European countries that have dreadlocks, right? What is your understanding of the history of dreadlocks?
Uh, Actually, there's an article that we even published within our uh, publication branch, Firefly, right? The Rise of Firefly. We published that article explaining what the dreadlocks originally really represents. Originally, according to our temples and according to the archives that we have in our temples, the dreadlocks are not something that is just for style, and the dreadlock is not an ideology. Okay, like it's not just a philosophy, it's not just an ideology, and it's not just a style. The dreadlocks are actually a very important matter of the spirituality of the indigenous people. And within the indigenous cultures that I'm coming from, even since the time of the pharaohs, we can talk about even some song in the Bible, the Quran, who used to have dreadlocks and all of that. But we understand that the human being's connection with the realities that exist in the universe on earth go through the person's toes and then the person's hair. So the reason why when we are born we grow, tall. The reason why when we are born, you plant a tree, it grows tall. And then the reason why you see mountains growing tall and all of that is because there's two forces that we understand, our cultures understand, to exist and manifest within the existence, to keep existence harmonious and all of that. And those two forces are, we can call them energies. One can be something that in a modern society you understand as to be the gravity, but the other one is the one that the modern society doesn't understand, doesn't know about, because within the existence it's not just that force that we call the gravity is the only one that exists. Now, even if we understand that that's the only force that exists, in our life, in our existence on earth and all of that, so then there needs to be the question of why things don't bump into each other, why things, all of the other things don't come and then fall, don't get pulled, and then fall on the earth and all of that. So our ancestors understood that there is another force that exists within the universe, and then that force comes from the celestial bodies, and then we call it the Yenu in our language, like the one that the modern society will call the gravity. In our language, we will call it the Baywali. And then the second one that the modern society doesn't understand is the one that we will call the Yenu. And the Yenu is the one that has the most of the power, and then almost like act as a dictator on in life, on earth especially. So for us human being, in for our good energy flow in the body, and then good energy flow between us and then the rest of the celestial body, because the earth uses us as antennas at some point. That's like the way the earth uses the trees as antennas, the forests as antennas, the rivers as antennas, the mountains and hills as antennas. Us at the same time, human being the earth at some point has to use us as antennas. So when the earth is using us as antennas, we need to be able to extend that, make it like we are like the perfect communication line, perfect channel that the earth has to use to communicate with the rest of the celestial bodies. So within that system, some people have to develop the aspect of living life where they keep the hair long. Where like because the connection with the Yenu, the other channel that I spoke about that's called the Yenu, is more with the hair that we wear on our head and all of them. But also when we take it all the way to the you know, to the spiritual aspect. That's just energetic aspect, what I was explaining. Now let's take it to the spiritual aspect. To the spiritual aspect, there are specific gods, specific powers in the universe and powers in nature that, for a human being to be able to serve them, human being to be able to work with them, human being to be able to be worshiping them, you have to be a human being that don't shave. You never shave. So most of the time, the initiates or the people who are like the temple caretakers of those deities and all of that and powers in nature have to live their life where from birth to their death they don't shave any hair on their body. They keep everything like that, and this is where like we see like in India, you see in India, some temples where you go and then you see a lot of people have like long dreadlocks. You go to Africa, we have the same thing. Like in Africa, we have children that are just born, they just arrive, and then we check in our system of divination. You will see that they are the return of someone who used to worship, this temple or this divinity. And because of that, we have to keep their hair long and we don't cut it until they grow old and then they choose a destiny. Once they decide to choose a destiny where they're not going to serve that divinity anymore, then they can go back and start cutting their hair. So, to our own opinion, we believe it to be something that is energetic and something that is very spiritual. And that's really like, how we carry it. The history is just divinity, and then the energy channels that we have to manage to be like the good, communicators and transmitters and all of that to the earth, and then for the earth to the rest of the celestial bodies.
Please tell us about the presence of Africans in North America prior to the arrival of Europeans.
That's that's a good one because around the world, this is actually a question that's still like a mystery to everyone. A mystery to the white man, a mystery to the European, a mystery to the black man, a mystery to the descendant of the African slaves and all of that. But we have to be honest at some point with ourselves as human, especially on our path towards elevation and towards finding ourselves and then reconnecting. One thing I may say is that there's a very high identity crisis that is actually animating every human being on this side of the planet, because the European don't want to be honest, and then the African descent also don't want to be honest, because at some point someone has to be honest. But if we all don't want to be honest and then we're going to keep lying to each other, then we're going to keep our younger generation in within that mystery where they will not be able to solve it. This is the reality. The concept of Pharaoh, when we speak about Egypt, we speak about the Kemetic culture, we speak about the rise of civilization, we speak about the Africa being the cradle of humanity. This is not something that's just like a joke, because right now Africans are not the one writing the history, and because we are not the one writing the history, those that are writing the history will write it the way they want to write it, and that's fair. That's fair. But at some point, someone has to understand that there needs to be a teacher and there needs to be a master, a student. And even if you are a teacher, that teacher also will have a teacher who at some point someone has to look as a master. So within that, human migration and everything, the every pharaoh who gets to sit on the throne within Egypt, the areas of Egypt that we call Egypt today, and then in the Nile Valley, every pharaoh who gets to sit as a pharaoh will have to order a mission, and the mission is that the culture that was being lived in that area needs to expand. It's just like how today America is colonizing or is certain bases, military base everywhere in around the world and all of that, and travel around, asking everybody to change their ways of life, to adopt the Americans' ways of life, democracy, this, that, and this and that. So those realities existed, and then whatever American government or European governments are doing today, modern society are doing today, are just like things that they learn from the real masters. It's in the history books where like something that's happened. So the Pharaoh will send missions, and the Pharaoh sending missions. The concept was not about colonization. The concept was more so like we reach enlightenment, we reach civilization, we reach awareness. Let's take it and then expand it to the point where the whole planet can have human being working on it, and then they have the same enlightenment. We all have the same understanding of what existence is, what life is. We all have the same principle that we live in on, and then the same discipline that we all carry, and all of that have the same goal. So that was the main reason why the Pharaoh would send those missions. And when you look around and then you see pyramids, not just only in Egypt, but you see them built on another, lands and all of that and all of that. Those were like the missions. And that used to be called the Exodus Army. At some point, that's how we start calling it the Exodus Army, because those were like the initiates. People who go like through the rite of passage, and their job is to travel and take whatever they learn and take it to other places, and then establish it, and then allow other people to benefit from it, and then rise, which is really like what the Earth Center is doing. The Earth Center is like the continuation of those missions that were happening around that time. So who is here before who? Yeah, for sure. We are the one, the black people, black African, we the one who showed the path to the white man that there's other places that exist as well. Because before that, the European was scared to travel in the sea. European was scared to take, to think about sitting on a piece of wood, and then cross the whole ocean to, whatever place that they don't even know. They were scared because they believed that there were monsters, in the ocean. So no one was traveling there. But the first, people who migrated, the first people who were traveling around the world, who have that courage to be like, let's travel, and then share our knowledge, and then see, discover, and all of that were like, the missions that came from Ituri, came from the Nile Valley. And then after that, there have been like other waves, because after the fall of Misra, after the fall of the temples in Misra and Ituri and all of that, then another wave of migration will happen, which will now be those that we call the Moors, the Moorish, and all of that, because those were more like the mixture between the Arab. Because once the civilization fell, in the Nile Valley, then the Arabs will migrate, and will take the land. And then once they take the land, yeah, between them and then some of the, sub-Saharan, people, their culture, there's gonna be some type of, marriage that will happen. Then those descendants will be the one that will travel again on this side. Just like how today we traveling on this side again, trying to, do the same thing that, we know our ancestors have been doing for a long time. But the job at this point is not what I'm saying. Is the reason why I'm saying at the beginning that's a big question, is that the job is not about traveling, who's travel first here and who travel second, or who is the first person to be here or not. Because at the end of the day, I'm a black person. If I have to speak for black people, I'm just going to speak for black people just like the same way Marcus Garvey speak for black people. Let's pack our things and then leave and go to our home. Go to where we come from. Go to where we are considered as the kings. Go to where we are considered as prince. Go to where we are considered as people with awareness and knowledge and the people with some type of understanding. But not, to live, continue living and then fighting to reclaim a land that enslaved us, a land that even if we were the first one to come, and at some point, that land now is the one that enslaving us and then doing everything to us. That would not be, a way of doing it because it hasn't been working. And then if people like Marcus Garvey already kind of interject those ideas and put those ideas, vision there, that's really like what's left to do in this situation that, we all find ourselves in. But who came here first? The black people discovered America. We discovered all of these land that you will see around the world. And when it was discovered, there's always a symbol that will be, printed on that land to know that, to make sure that, it's known that, black people are here. We were the first one to come here. And then when you will travel around America, we know places. We travel around America, we go to places. I don't like traveling America and staying in hotels and then being in the big cities and all of that. I like being in nature. I like being in the places where, it's kind of natural, no one wants to go. So you go to those places, you will see signs that show that, oh, this is really coming from the authority of Kemet. This is coming from the authority of Africa. This is coming from the authority of, the kings in Casablanca. We travel, we see all of those things.
What are some of the signs?
So I mean, it has to be natural. It has to be initiatic, because there's a let's take for instance the pyramids, which is like the biggest thing that everybody still questioning, like how all of that were built, how the indigenous people were able to build these kind of things with limited technology and all of that. No, these people were more advanced than us today. Today, our concept of development and technology is just like killing ourselves and destroying ourselves and all of that. But they weren't doing that. They were more elevated. They were more elevated, and anything they created or they did was, to also work with their own elevation. So when you look at the pyramid like down in South America, because South America is just like right, at the same level as Africa, right? So when you put the two together, you will see that it was just like one land. And even you look at the vegetation, you look at the part that are desertic, the part that are like, a green, the part that have water and all of the rivers. When you put them together, you will see that, okay, it's a one same thing, right? So the travel will go through there. Okay. Once they arrive there, those are the first land where the first places where they landed. Okay, so they landed firstly in South America before even coming to the Northern America. Okay, because there's no way, naturally, there's no way for you and I, black people, our ancestors, to travel from, for the first time to travel from a place like that, like Africa, to get here and then just go to Chicago or just go to, Toronto. It's too cold. So they have to follow the climate at the same time. And then as they adjust, to the reality and the climate and the weather, then yeah, they keep moving. They keep moving and all of that up until they reach all of the other places that they were able to reach. The symbols are so simple. You can even look on my ring. I'm wearing whatever I'm wearing. Those are like a simple symbol, but this is just a very small, right? But when you look in nature, you will see that our ancestors who came here first were so intelligent, where like they left prints of those things that you see every day, but you just don't pay attention. A lot of people don't pay attention. Why? Because we are too much in the books. We want to fight for our ancestor came here first, but yet we don't have time to go in nature and discover that and research and find what proves that our ancestors were here first. But instead, we want to be in the books and then try to prove, something. Someone wrote this and someone did this. Because someone wrote this, that means that this. No, we have to go in nature, because there's some things in nature that are real. Like there's no way for me to be sitting down here trying to prove another human being that the pyramids were built by black people in Africa. There's no way. They can break the nose, they can do whatever they want to do, change the color, change the history, and all of that. There's no way because the pyramid is something you cannot move. If there was a way that those pyramids can be moved, I'm sure the Western society will have moved them and said that no, they were the one to build those things. Their ancestors were the one to build those things. But somehow it's something too big to move. But anything they were able to move, they move it. That's why we have museum everywhere. And you go to museum, you see even our ancestors' body laying in the museum and all of that. You see, things, our divinities that they stole, everything is in the museum. That's because they can move those stuff. But why would I spend time trying to prove someone that African ancestors are the one who built the pyramid? I don't need to do that. Since when European will go to your village and build something for you? We have villages that need water. We have villages that need clean water. We have villages that need, stuff. No one comes to do that. And then you want to tell me that someone who doesn't know how to, take some of their resources and go help another person get some water to drink. You want to tell me that their ancestors have the capacity and the ability to go and then build pyramids on our lands? No. If there was a way to build their pyramid, they would build on their own lands. They're not going to build on our land. So technically, if it's built in Africa and those pyramids exist on African land, it was built by African. Same thing over here. When you travel around, you will see sign that they left. A lot of I traveled around and I saw a lot of rocks, portraits that look like my face. I look at those and I look at myself. Even some of those people living there, I'm like, wow, it looks like those were like your ancestors. I'm like, yes, they made sure to leave the prints here everywhere. And then when we follow our ancestors' ways and we follow their spirit and we follow their ways, we will follow at the same time, the path that they walk. And then we will see the sign that they left there. They left sign. And that's really like what the Earth Center is doing. We try to ask everybody, there's a path that our ancestors walk, and then only Marcus Garvey was, enlightened enough to tell people, let's follow that path. That path will lead us to where, we are, what we need, and all of that. And this is really like, once we fail doing that. That's why we are like in that kind of identity crisis that we're in. You know. Because there are paths. Everything is in America. In Chicago, I can travel in Chicago. I live in Chicago. I can travel in Chicago and show you this print here, this rock here, this here. This means that this our ancestors were here before. Simple. I was in Arkansas. Oh, I love that place. I was in Arkansas and then I saw a few things over there and I'm like, our ancestors were here. And they were there. Because a lot of tools today, even today, for us to be using tools, and then we use a lot of tools that we don't understand where they're coming from. And we want to even give the credit to the European. European didn't even know how to wash clothes. They didn't even know how to wash, they didn't even know the concept of soap. Our ancestors were the one to come and show them the concept of soap. The concept of perfume, they didn't even know that. The perfume was more like alcohol for them. That's why even today when you make the perfume, the spray, you have to make it with alcohol. Because they didn't know like you can just use some flour and make some oil. And then, use that oil on you. And then you smell like for the rest of, the season, smell good for the rest of season and all of that. So if we have to do the history, I'm sorry that our world is a very big melting pot now. It's a very big melting pot. And the liar will speak loud and act like he's the truth teller. And the truth teller is humble enough where he doesn't speak and everyone will think that he's guilty or he's a liar. But that's the world we live in where, stupidity is rewarded. Wisdom is no more rewarded. It's stupidity. Once you act, with stupidity, then you get rewarded. And then that's how we live now. So that's why at this point, what are we going to leave for our descendants? The same story that the white man wrote, the same story that the universities are writing, the same story that the anthropologists are writing, the same story that our PhD, black PhD holders are going, doctors are writing. No, we have to, at some point start researching, because before we can claim that we are the first settlers of this place to settle on this land, we have to show the sign. This is because this is because this. And once we're able to prove that to the rest of the world, then yes, we can now start asking for any right that we want to ask. But that's like a very, difficult job at this point, because we don't even have control anymore. You know, the European took everything. He made sure to put all of that, all of the prints, all of the sign in place and hide whatever needs to be hidden. And then, yeah, they claim that they own it. What can we do? Nothing.
I want to talk about the history of the Dogons and how they have been able to preserve their mystery system.
Thank you. Uh, with the honor that I have for all of my ancestors, I have to admit that they were great, because once I traveled in America or other places I traveled to, and I saw how the modern waves came and destroyed everything, to the point where not just the history, they destroyed to even just destroy any identity that indigenous people can hold. It's happening in Africa nowadays. As of now, even it's still happening. But it's not like it's just started. It's been going. When we talk about the fall of Misra, the fall of the civilization in the Nile Valley, it's not something that just happened like 1 year. It's something that took like about 3,000 years. Every time there's like invasion happen, attempts of invasions happen. Up until at some point, you get someone from inside, and then yeah, you get it done. So same thing happened to a lot of cultures, or a lot of indigenous places or tribes that existed. Where like it takes time. It takes time, and at some point, all of them will be wiped out and then destroyed. And the Native American here, the thing that happened to the Native American over here is something that, if that has to be something that will have happened to our culture or our tribe in Africa, I think the whole world will be left with nothing but just the story that the white man would tell us, the story that the European would tell us. If I have if my father is alive, and then my grandfather also is alive, and then I need to know about something that happened before my father was born, I'm not going to ask you to my father. I'm going to go ask my grandfather. And the modern system and modern education knows that. For us to call this the modern system is because there are systems that have been older, and this is new, and the new is having a problem for the fact that if the ancient still exists, the new will not be validated, will not have the validation. So, but for the old, for the new to exist and then completely control everything, it has to, cut off the olds. It has to wipe out the olds. How did our ancestors avoid that? We avoided that by being able to adopt a new system. Before, we used to have big, gigantic temples built. We built big gnomes, we built big, temples, to big structures, to prove how elevated, how aware our people, are, how, we reach elevation, enlightenment. We used to build those things. You can talk about the pyramid. You can talk about a lot of other things that exist. We even have pyramids that are not visible. That's what people don't understand. At the same time, we have people focusing, trying to understand the visible pyramid that we see. There are pyramids that the great ancestor built that are not visible, that you cannot see with these eyes, that still exist. So, in that situation, the change has to happen. Once the fall happen, once the invasion happen, the change has to happen. First, change the way we present ourselves, meaning wearing, all of the things that we used to wear, building big structures and all of that. Forget about that. Now let's go and start dressing mud cloth. That's why when you go to our villages, everyone, men, women, children, everybody, elder, everybody's in a mud cloth. You come, you see someone wearing a mud cloth, dirty teeth, collar knots spitting from here and there and all of that, and then torn clothes, mud. You're not gonna think they have anything that is possible for you to even benefit, because that's what modern mind function. That's how modern mind function. The modern mind looks at what is shining. It doesn't look at what is not shining. So because of that, our ancestors, we change the ways. Our ancestors change the ways, culture change, and we start living just simple, and then according to nature. Now, the transmission of the knowledge and its preservation, just for the sake of its preservation and then protecting it, has to happen through some intense rite of passage, some intense initiation. It has to go through that system. And then through that system, within that system, what happened? We don't have any more writing. We don't live like a physical, archives of physical writing. That's like, okay, now we left this, and then this is, for the generation to know. But what do we do? It's at the same time encrypted within the DNA. I'm sure you watch, many of our viewers watch Wakanda, and they watch Wakanda Forever and all of that. That history is so beautiful. That history comes to really kind of, explain how some of our tribes in Africa really adopted a new way of life where like they exist, but you don't know that they exist.
I have a question, right? So with the Dogons, correct me if I'm wrong. From what I understand, the initiate that gets the information, doesn't he live separate from everyone and he doesn't have sex?
No,
No?
no. During the rite of passage, you have to be, by yourself, where like no sexual activity, nothing that will come and then corrupt your mind, corrupt your physical body, corrupt your spirit. Is anything like that is forbidden during the rite of passage. Even within our initiation in temple here in America, with the temples that the Dogon we establish, when you decide to come today to start initiation, you stop smoking, you stop drinking, you stop few things. And then for the whole time of your initiation, you will have to stop all of those things. After the initiation, and you travel and then you cross that level, then we'll be like, okay, certain things can be allowed now, depending on who you are. So that same system is what our ancestors held, right? And you don't get to share what you learn through the rite of passage with someone who has not, been present in the rite of passage. We even have codes. We have a way we greet. When you see the modern secret society existing, it's based on that. Freemason, Rosicrucian, Kabbalah, and all of that. Those, system, secret system exists because they saw that that's how indigenous people live. You arrive in the indigenous society and then you will see everybody live as normal. But when it comes to certain matters, only initiates, those who have been through the rite of passage are informed about it, and are the one to even sit and then come up with decisions and solution of all of the things that needs to help the society or the community and all of that. So the knowledge itself, as I was saying, the preservation of it, even things that we still teaching nowadays in our temple in the West, in the Western societies, that knowledge is preserved through the mouth to the ear, the speech. That's why we speak about tradition. when we talk about tradition and people talk about I'm a traditional person, I'm practicing tradition. No, it's not about you doing what you're doing. That's called tradition. It's you being able to transmit the knowledge from your words to someone's ear for it to be encrypted in the cerebral system of the person, where now it stays in the blood, where that person is able to one day have a child, and when that child comes, and then that child gets to also listen the father or the uncle or the master say, repeat the same words, and then it activates right away in the body.
How were your ancestors able to see Sirius B?
Sirius B and C. We saw C. We saw A, B, C. How? Let me put it so simple, right? You the planet that we live on is called planet Earth, right? And when we look up, we see all of the other star system that we see. At some point, our ancestors, in their small wisdom, thought about what's all of these? Is there a way to reach these? And this is not just like a one generation thing. This is like a generation after generations that question has been there. At some point, they will understand that the planet that we're living on is also a celestial body. That's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people forget that the planet that we live on is also a celestial body, and that's part of the whole universe, and that one is in relation with the rest of the celestial bodies. We can look at the sun and think the sun is a celestial body. We can look at the moon and see that the moon is a celestial body. We can look at planet Mars. We can look at Venus, all of the Milky Ways, galaxy. We look at them and we are more kind of attracted. We are more kind of intrigued. Like we want to travel there. We want to understand them. But we forget that we're living on one. We were born on one. Okay, we were conceived on one, formed on one, born on that one, and that one is the one to take care of us, raise us, feed us, do everything, give us water to do, make sure we are even. There's no way we wake up and then we not our destiny is not linked to this one that we stand on. We just our ancestor just when we ask those questions ourselves, they just said that we learn how to humble ourselves to planet Earth. Because when you humble yourself to someone that is bigger than you gain knowledge. They teach you. The planet Earth is in a relation with the rest of the celestial bodies, just like you and I, we are in a relation now. And your identity is my identity. For me to get your identity, you have to manifest yourself, I'll get it. And for me to give you my identity, I have to manifest myself and you get it. The earth is in communication. I was explaining here the concept of Bayuali and Yenu. How there's one channel that we know about the earth, energetic channel, that's gravity. But there's also another one that we know that exists that's called Yenu. So through those two channels of transmission, emission, transmission, emission, there's a million possibilities to identify million other realities that exist within the universe. But all of that have to go through the memory of the earth. The earth itself, our ancestors understood that the earth itself has a memory. Just like you and I, we have our brains where we record everything. We have memories that we record everything, we keep everything. The earth has that. The trees that we see have that. The rivers have that. The mountains have that. The animals have that. So those memories, the reason why your dog will remember you is not because you feed it. The reason why your dog remember is because within the cerebral system of your dog knows is connected to your own, and then its brain is connected to your brain. It knows only you, and knows only the speech you give. You're the only one to give the command to your dog for your dog to listen. I cannot give command to your dog and your dog will listen because you and your dog, your cerebral system are already connected, and then that's like a channel that happen to the point where I can look at the way your dog behave and know the kind of person you are, understand you, how you think, how you are, and all of that. So with the earth has that too within its composition, where we use the science. I know that's really what you're waiting for. We use the science, and that science is called mtam science, meaning mtam in our language would be like from within the earth. So the mtam science is a system that allow us to penetrate the memory of the earth, and then from penetrating its memory, ask the question we want to ask, and then the earth, if the earth has the answer, the earth will reveal it to us. So the earth has been in for millions of years since the beginning. The earth has been in relation with all of those other celestial bodies that exist in the universe. So if the earth has been that's why we call it universe, many things existing in unity, right? So if the earth has been in relation with them, anything we want to know, we will know. Anything you want to understand, you will understand. So, and that's how, through that science that we call them term science, that's how we were able to, our ancestors were able to connect with, some other channels, and then those channels open, those gates open, and then we're able to manifest and then penetrate, understand the mystery of those, gates as well.
And what's the Dogon origin story? Because this is my first time speaking to someone close like you. Everyone else I'm speaking to is more someone who read about the Dogons. What is the Dogon origin story that you were told?
Our origin story, like you mean our cosmology?
Yes.
Our cosmology. According to the Dogon and our elders, a lot of people think that we are aliens, and then aliens taught us, and then we are coming from the star system, right? Like our ancestors came from star system. The element that you call aliens, in our cultures, we look at them as gods. We look at them as divinities. We look at them as entities, part of the universe. Entities, part of the universe that have a way of manifesting themselves in our reality, which is a 3D reality. We are like in three-dimensional reality. We can only live in this, but for us to be able to manifest ourselves in another D, that's like 4D, above 3D, to go like 4D, we have to be able to elevate at some point, go through a lot of change, a lot of mutation to be able to do that. So when people sit down and say they meditate and then they say they resonate and all of that, you're still in the 3D dimension. You're not going anywhere. Even with everything that you resonate with and all of that, you're still in the 3D dimension reality. And you're just discovering all of the other things that exist within the 3D reality that your senses, conventional sensing, cannot perceive, right? So our story is this: from one entity, from one manifestation, our ancestors were able to encounter a manifestation of a being that we don't know about, that we never met. But we noticed that that being, we noticed that something at some point happened with our crops, with our lands, with our waters at certain time, a year, every year. It has to happen then. But how, who comes to do that? But when we even look, it's not the print of anyone in the village or in the reality then. It's like something that's bigger than whatever we might imagine.
So what happens to the crops?
Well, they come and then take, harvest our crops and take it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, does it still go on today or no?
It's still going on today. But today with them perfecting themselves and us also, in our culture perfecting ourselves, we have a way that we communicate. We don't even wait for them to come and ask for it anymore. You don't wait for them to come and then ask for you. Just that that's why we have ceremonies. That's why we have masks.
I was gonna ask you. Right?
That's why every year or every season, every period, we have some masks that have to come out with ceremonies, and then we present them the grains. We present them everything as offering. They take it, and we ask for what we want.
Are the masks supposed to represent the faces of the deities they saw, or is just the mask just a mask?
Now, it's supposed to represent the faces or the manifestation of the entities or the deities that we saw. That's what the mask is supposed to represent. Some of those masks. So technically, it's just like an exchange. It's like an embassy. The way you might be in Russia, and then you want to go to the American embassy if the American embassy is there. Then once you enter the American embassy in Russia, everything you need that your country to do for you or your government to do for you will be done over there, right? So it's the same way. At some point, embassies have to be created all around where we see like our tribes exist. Embassies have to be created. Actually, even the pyramids represent like the embassies, represent like where those realities and the human then meet and then exchange and then continue their elevation and all of them.
Reasoning with your pops, right? Has your father ever spoken about going to the fourth dimension?
My father, he was up to I think 9.
Ninth dimension?
Yeah.
So what's going on up there? Like I'm just saying, like when has he ever explained his experiences when he went to another dimension or no?
Yes, he does explain.
So what did he say?
Well, it's just Bob Marley. Bob Marley is a higher vibration human being in the human flesh, in bones and body, who also at some point reach, higher dimension. And then what he does is like he managed to manifest all of that through his music. That's why his music would never finish. You never get tired listening to everything Bob Marley did. Okay. For my father, everything that he learned, everything that he achieved, he put it within what we are even teaching today in the Earth Center. He manifested it and then put it within. He even had to ask permission to our royalties and dignities of the temple if this is allowed to be taught outside of our tribes and all of that. And everything we teach in our temple is his achievement. It's almost like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, who created Apple, he has to achieve certain dimension. Elon Musk, he has to achieve certain dimension. Bill Gates, they have to achieve certain dimension before they're able to produce whatever they produce. But my father just decided to use whatever he produced, to use whatever he achieved to produce he likes saying that he wants to build super intelligent human beings. Like super intelligent human beings with the concept of the new old generation of priesthoods. Human that have the ability to access the higher realities, the higher things, and then to be able to play that role on the planet. And that's why we have our temple everywhere. It's about elevating the quality, And to this, that's all I can really say about most of the things that he shared. But he shared a lot that is, amazing. It's almost like the first time you receive a gift from your father or you receive a gift from your mother. If you remember as a kid, the day you receive a gift from your mother or your father, how you jump and how happy you are. So he said, if anyone can remember that feeling, that's how when you reach the real knowledge, that's the feeling you get because that feeling comes without ambiguity. You don't get to gain knowledge and then knowledge does not free you. You have to gain knowledge and for the knowledge to kind of free you from a lot of other things. And yeah, he was able to achieve those dimensions. And I'm happy that you really asked the question about our cosmogony and cosmology, because for us we have what we call the cosmogony, and we have what we call like the cosmology. Cosmology is what people have been writing about, meaning like the concept of ology. You know, any concept that kind of ology, biology, zoology, you know, all of that. That concept of ology is a concept that someone came and studied us. Someone came and then tried to ask questions and study us, but did not take a time to live with us, learn our language, learn our culture, learn our ways, and then detach from who they are to be like us, to understand that properly. So those are the people 2 months, 2 weeks in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Benin, in Togo, in Kenya, in South Africa, who come back and say they are priests, they are healers, they are this, they are writers, they are this, they are that. And we have problem with that. We have problem that you just came to study with us. You didn't come to really live with us to know us. You come to ask few questions. Don't take that and go back and write as if you know us. You know. So that's why there's a difference between the cosmology and that's the cosmology. They're trying to tell you about us, about what they know about us, what they study about us. But
What they think they know about you.
they think they know. You see, like you don't come to. I'm not gonna come in your house and you're just gonna open, you know, your wherever you keep your weapons. You're not gonna show me that. Are you? First day I come in your house. Oh, I show you around. This is the bathroom. This is the kitchen. Oh, this is your room where you're gonna sleep. Oh, let me show you something. This is where I keep all of my guns. You're not gonna show me that. And the same way, we intelligent people, even though we dress in mud, we dress, you know, torn clothes, we intelligent people. Even with the way we live, our ancestors always say it's a choice. We choose to live that way. We didn't choose, it's not like we are cursed to live that way. It's a choice, which allow us to preserve ourselves and preserve whatever we produce so that, you know, the posterity will benefit from it at some point, you know. So there's now the cosmogony. The cosmogony is the story that if you come into my initiation, you decide to take the rite of passage. That's the one that we will tell you. But we don't get to speak about it if you are not in the process of rite of passage. You have to be someone who also is initiated, is learning, because there's a difference between learning and studying. And those who come to study are the one who come and then write about us. But those who come to learn and be like us and then trying to live our life and live our ways of all of that, those people, it's going to be difficult for you to get them to even say anything about the Dogon. Because they already feel like they are Dogon too. You know, they feel like they are Dogon. They feel like they've been adopted. They've been a Dogon, and then they know the value, the principle, they respect it. You know, same like people who travel to the Vodun temple, same like people who travel to Ifa temple, same like people who travel to all of those temples. When you go, just don't go take. That's just like what the Greek did. That's like what the Romans did. That's like what, you know, European did. That's like what the Arabs did to that culture. I'm so, you know, still surprised how our ancestors managed to still keep something, you know, to still, because I see what happened to Native American over here. Indigenous in America, I see what they wiped out, they finished. But the system that our ancestors create has been the only protection that we have, which is tradition, from the mouth to the ear. older generation to younger generation, from the father to the son, mother to the daughter. That's been whatever has been kind of protecting our. Even now they are in our villages trying to say that we need to stop having children. Yeah, they're telling us that, but that's how we able to survive. But right then they tell us to stop doing that.
Please explain what divination is.
Divination. Uh, I'm afraid I'm not English. English is not my first language. I learned it, but I will try using my concepts, the concept of my language. Divination would mean take from the visible to serve the invisible, and take from the invisible to serve the visible. Meaning, know what is needed in the invisible from the visible, and whatever is needed in the visible from the invisible. Now, once we speak about divination, we're speaking about being in a domain or in a system that does not apply to only the three-dimensional reality, but a system that applies to two realities. Meaning, like you have to be in a dualistic position, dualistic position between the material worlds and the non-material worlds, and know how to function and communicate between the two worlds. Right. So there's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy. And it's not even given to anyone to do divination. Because I went through the rite of passage, does not mean that I'm a priest, we can do divination. Because within the rite of passage and within the concept of priesthood, there are branches of priesthood. And there's a priest that is like a researcher priest. There's a priest that is like a discoverer priest. There's a priest that's like an execution priest. There's a priest that's like a healing priest. So there's many dimensions, many branches in even priesthood or shamanism. There's many branches within it. So depending on which one you are, you specialize, then you end up, just focusing on it and then growing on it. Meaning, if I'm a researcher priest, I'm allowed to be doing divination. Meaning, I'm allowed to be a person who can demand to have access to the invisible forces and then communicate because I'm a researcher. I'm working between, my research is not in the lab like the scientists, but my research is more like what can we do? What can we get from here to serve you? What can you get from there to serve here? And all of that. So in the divination, the levels are big because we have the hierarchy that is like it goes from what we call like the creator gods. We have to go from the creator gods to the gods that are created. Okay? And then from the creator gods to the gods that are created, human don't have access. Human being. We don't have access to the creator gods. We don't have access to the gods that are created. But we start having access to them only when we're able to go through our ancestors. Those that are like us and made us, but somehow they are detached from their bodies and they die, they transition. So through my ancestor is closer to those creation realities. Then through your ancestor, you go to them, and then your ancestor has a way of manifesting your desire and all of that. So it's almost like a system that has to depend on a lineage. Because if my father did not do divination, it's almost impossible for me to do divination because I have to depend on him to be able to have access to the realities that I need to have access to be able to serve you. Now, people confuse, intuition, instinct with divination because you have the tools in front of you and then you learn how to use those tools does not mean that you know what you're doing because or doesn't mean that the person know what they're doing. They're just using their intuition or their instinct to be telling you what they think, to be telling you what it is, and all of that. But divination in this temple doesn't work like that. It has to go from, the lineage, and then you go from the lineage to the powers that are created and powers that are from your ancestor who did it before you to the powers of the creation or the powers that have been created. So let's take this example, right? Let's talk about healing. And for instance, talk about cancer, right? That's the problem of the whole world right now. So the priesthood, even though the modern system is now asking indigenous people to, focus and try to find a solution, a remedy for cancer, the traditional people, we are smart enough to know like this is something that we have to start thinking about so that by the time it comes to at our gates, it comes to our houses, we know what to do ahead of time. So yeah, we started focusing on learning how to do that, right? But it's not going to be possible for me to stand in front of in the forest or in the savannah and talk to the plants because traditional healing use plants only. So it's not going to be possible for me to do that if I'm not able to invoke the spirits of my ancestors who practice healing, who dealt with nature before me. It has to go through that system. Now, once they come, then we are in the situation of, three-dimensional communication, which is I want to know what can we do to solve this problem that's plaguing humanity now. And ancestors also will have to talk to the spirit because we look at every plant as a dimension. Every tree that we see is like a dimension. It's like the dwelling of some power because human beings don't create plants. We don't create them. We just plant the seed and then they become one day a tree. Sometimes some of the plants, the trees, we are not the one planting them. They just grow. So that's a divine creation, meaning that's something that the powers created, right? So we follow that. Mountains, human beings don't build mountains. That's the powers that were created. And then they end up becoming the dwelling of certain realities. So we approach them. So this is where, if it's not very well explained to a believer, a religious believer, the person would think that, it's evil, but it's not evil. We're just acknowledging the power, the divine within the creation.
How often do you connect with your father now?
Even if I have the possibility to connect with him right now, I would do that. And for me to be able to, for my body to be able to be the vessel for him to talk with you, yeah, I would do that. We're talking about high techniques, higher techniques of spirituality over here. We're not talking about just like jokes and all that. We're talking about higher techniques in the temples, in our communities back home in Africa. That's what you will see higher techniques. People getting to go through their ancestors to be able to do whatever needs to be done. So that's where we come. That's what I will use to really explain the concept of divination, because it has to go from only realities that are divine only. Then I just end up becoming like a medium. I end up becoming like a medium as a priest or as a shaman. I just end up becoming a medium and then they use me. I see a lot of people nowadays saying they are gods, they are this, they are goddesses, they are this and this, which is good. That's the identity Christ caused that. You know, When you like in identity Christ, you go through that. But somehow a God doesn't cacker, a God doesn't sweat, a God doesn't pee, a God doesn't eat something that's dead. A God that it's like we have a lot. A God doesn't get sick. A God does not die. So this is why we kind of trying to redefine ourselves because we like in the identity loss and all of that. We trying to redefine, but all it takes is reconnect with those people that are sitting in the dust in their mud cloth. Go see them. It's hard. It's difficult to live in those environment. But that's how knowledge comes to be. That's how you get knowledge.
And talking to you, I see the importance of ancestors because in our modern time, especially now, there's no respect for the elders and ancestors, and there's a disconnect.
Yes.
And you can see how that manifests itself in a spiritual problem,
Yes.
because everyone I speak to kind of on that vibe always speak about the importance of the ancestors, but I can say there's no connection or respect
Yeah.
for ancestors with this generation.
I'm very honored. I'm humble for by that because that's if there's anything that I want you and I to really contribute in our viewers day becoming, it's just that concept of the ancestral spirit and honoring it. It's not something that, I mean, who gave you blood? Your father. Who gave you your body? Your father and your mother. Who gave you blood? Your father and your mother. There's nothing you can prove on yourself that you can claim to be like you are the one who made it for yourself. They created you. Once they're dead, the minimum we can do is to set a shrine for them. Because somehow they got rid of the body that they were in, the spirit still live within us. Because it's my father's blood that is in me. And it's my mom's milk that got me to be standing wherever I'm standing.
So for people listening, like, how would you create a shrine? What guidance would you give for someone to create a shrine for their
The
ancestor?
yeah, the smallest, the beginning for a beginner, and then kind of someone who just like a beginner in this, I will ask the person to get a rock from a rock at maybe this size from a river that flows, and then to get another rock same size from a crossroads, and another rock. And when I say crossroads, like two roads that cross. You look around, you find a rock, you pick it up, a rock from a forest, and then a rock from a mountain. You have those four rocks. You clean them with milk and frankincense. You leave them, and you choose a corner in your house. We have in our houses, in a temple, in a place in your house, you're supposed to have a place that's called a designated space. I mean, a space that you know that when you want to enter into connection with the invisible manifestation of yourself, then this is where you go. Then, you create something like that. You don't go there when you're not pure. You don't even go there and then, manifest your dirtiness. You go there only when you up to, reach that light.
And what do you mean by not pure?
Not pure is because you know how in the modern society everybody just know how to wipe and no one knows how to clean. Wiping does not clean your butthole clean properly. But using water to clean, water has been like the main. Why don't you use like a paper towel to wash your body? To wipe your body and then put new clothes and say you clean. That's even like just on the surface. On the surface of your body, you use water to clean yourself before you put new clothes, before you feel like you clean. But at the part of you that smell the most, you think just wiping is enough to kind of say that you clean. No, you have to use water as well. If you use water externally, use water over there to clean too. And then we have a system of purification, ablution. We have a book, we have a book that we put everything, the practical book that we put everything there for people to kind of learn all of that. Because divine beings don't get close to dirtiness. They are divine. Divine beings. They are divine. Even Jesus. If I was Jesus, you come to me, pray in me, and then your butt is have like some residues of caca that you just did in the morning, and then you come. I'm not going to stand and listen to you. Even if I was Mahomet, I'm not going to stand and listen to you. At least the Muslim adopted some of the, ancient ways. Like they adopted the purification. Muslims do the purification before they present themselves to, even worship. Then that's even like because they adopted that from, learning from the temples and all of that, And once you set up your rock, going back to the shrine, once you set it up, then your ancestors, those who already departed, family, friends, you keep their pictures there. And then every 10 days, we have a calendar that we follow. Our calendar is based on the star system, the Sirius star system. It's based on its orbit and movement and all of that. So depending on how the star system, this Sirius star move on its orbit, every 10 days, it opened the channels, or it opened the gates for the ancestral spirits, our ancestors, to kind of come and then check on us every 10 days. That's how parenthood is. Like, wherever I am, I want to be checking on my children every day. But because our ancestor died, does not mean that, or our parent died, does not mean that they detach from us. First of all, they live within us. They own this body, they own this blood. Second, every 10 days, even the star system allow the gates to open for them to travel from the world of the dead, the invisible world, and to manifest in our life every 10 days. So when you do all of those things every 10 days, according to when you have the sidereal calendar, you will have everything in there. Every 10 days, you leave them some milk, some cakes, or some fruits. They come, you leave it there from sunrise to sunset. The next one, you remove it, you go give it to nature. You go give it to so simple. That's the beginning. At even like at the beginner level, that's what you can do. And then you can see the change. I mean, I'm sure people will try that and then they will contact you. You yourself, you try that, you will be like, damn, you see the change. But that's the connection. That's the very, very, very first connection in us trying to evolve as a human being. That ancestry. That's the very first connection. Yeah, now let's talk about, black people and how as our disconnection to our ancestral spirit is causing us a lot of problems in our days today. Because we feel like, slavery happened. Yes, things happen in history. But at least we still have a chance to continue following the evolution of time. And if there's a way for us to even like change or participate in the evolution of time, the only thing we can start by doing is reconnecting with that ancestral spirit. Because the ancestral spirit will not die. The spirit that died, on the ocean, the spirit that died in the forest, the spirit that died maybe in a sugarcane farm and all of that. It's not like it's just the body that is gone, but the spirit is still there. That needs to be very well taken care of. That needs to be very well, fed, maintained, because they suffer. Every 10 days, something like that in the name of those spirits is enough to already kind of start kind of, activating everything in them and all of them, allowing them to activate things in you as well. But that's the only way the white man, the European, can respect us. That's the only way. Because if you're going to go every Sunday, kneel down in front of Jesus, I don't think the European will respect you. If you're gonna go every Friday kneeling down in front of Maome, I don't think you're gonna gain respect from that. We just have to learn how to kneel down every 10 days in front of the pictures of our ancestors. Leave them some to drink, leave them some to eat, the energy aspect of it, and then that's it. That's all we need. And that's really what the problem is right now with our people. And then that's really only thing that we travel around telling people, wake up to realize that you are the manifestation of your ancestor spirit, and then focus, connect with them. Once you connect with them, it will open whatever needs to be open.